Let's see, let's have, Bill, I don't know that you've done this for a while, lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I didn't call this meeting to order, so I'll do it now, after the pledge. And as usual, we'll approve minutes of prior meetings, both of which are from December 12th. The first, well, I guess we can probably do these together if everybody's okay with that. We have minutes from our work session of December 12th and the regular meeting of December 12th. We have a motion to approve those.
So moved.
Second.
Bill, John, any discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I wasn't there.
Oh, all right. Neil recuses himself from the vote because he wasn't present. So those minutes are approved. The announcements are that the next meetings are going to be at 6 o'clock, a first public hearing on Monday, January 23rd, and a second budget public hearing if needed, and to read petition warrant articles Thursday, February 9th. Work review sessions prior to regular meetings start at 5. The town offices will be closed on Monday, January 16th for Martin Luther King Day. There's going to be a special town meeting, as we've discussed before, on January 18th, 2017, regarding the appointing the select board as agents to expend from the highway material and handling capital reserves. This is in relation to an excavator that we've talked about previously with Joe. All of these meetings will be held here unless otherwise posted, and if you would like to be heard at one of these meetings, please notify the town hall before noon on the Friday before. And our next item on here is a purchase order to Motorola Inc. for portable radios, chargers, and accessories, which I understand is an annual expenditure to update our radios. The chief is not here tonight because I think he's on the road taking care of something else. But this is a routine thing. Do we have a motion to approve the radio upgrade purchase order?
So move.
John,
Second.
Neil, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right, so that purchase order is approved, but I've lost my
Original?
pen. I think that's the original. Oh, wait, no, that isn't. Yeah, it is. What is it? You always watch over me. Oh, I see then.
Come, please.
Stop it.
Oh, crap. Is that with that, I think?
Can you, Neil, can you put this with that?
This goes with.
I'm gonna have to watch you now, too.
Guess so. Missing a paper clip or something.
And then the next item on here is Karen Freitas, a purchase order to Co-File Technologies concerning the conservation microfilming of town records for $41,553. This is, again, something that was previously approved. Karen was unable to be here tonight, but I understand that all of our town records that were scheduled to be conserved through microfilming and so on have been taken care of. The work's been completed, so we're really just looking to pay the bill for work that's already been done and previously authorized. Do we have a motion to approve this purchase order?
So moved.
Second.
All right, by Bill and Neil again, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Oh, here's my pen.
Excellent.
We're good to go. And the next one here is a purchase order. This is from Paul in favor of Eco Electric LLC involving heaters for the tax collector and clerk's office downstairs and the so-called gold room, which is the upstairs room in front of us here. Did you want to describe that at all, Paul? Or?
They're just 3 mini HVAC systems that both heat and cool the town clerk's office, the tax collector's office, and a small meeting room across the hall.
So these are those little things that are bolted up on the wall and provide heat and air conditioning. And from what you told me, the tax collector and the town clerk's office have not been well heated in the past because of the deficiencies in the big system. And then this one we're hoping will provide some heat and AC up here. And so the total purchase order is $7,717.40. Do we have a motion to approve that purchase order?
So move.
Second.
John, and seconded by Neil. All those in favor?
I got a question about that.
Yeah.
So on the notes there, it says I have sent a copy of the invoice to the co-op. And the rebate approximately $1,500 will be sent direct to the town. So $1,500 will be coming off that $7,700, or will the $1,500
Off
rebate?
the 7,000.
And is this a heat pump, or is it just? Looks like.
The whole unit is on the wall, and there's another additional piece downstairs.
Okay. Okay. Just was kind of like interested in.
It was called like mini split systems or something. Isn't that sort of the generic term?
Looks like there's there's a
The
drain
chief
line.
was here tonight, he would have been able to explain to you. That's how the whole PD is done right now.
Okay.
They operate off of 12 volts. They have a step-down transformer. That's where your savings come in.
Did we take a vote on that?
Not yet.
Okay. Is there any further
No,
discussion?
that's it for me.
If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All right. And I already signed it, so jumped the gun a little bit there, I guess. And then the last one is Jesse is looking for some money to pay Javelin Manufacturing for a conveyor / sorter for the recycling center. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, Jesse?
Evening.
So, I'm asking the town, or the select board, to use part of the $2 million bond that was allocated this year, or last year, for a new can sorter. The one that is currently we have is a manure spreader that Paul made.
Say that again, a what?
A manure spreader. That's exactly what it was. He disassembled it, put a ceramic magnet on the end of it, and it was able to sort out ferrous metals. It is old, and it's been damaged several times now. So it needs to be replaced.
Is Paul going to be able to deal with this emotionally?
Trying not to look. We'll find another use for
So
that.
Paul's old manure spreader is going to be retired in favor of a legit can sorter?
Yes. It's so I went through several different manufacturers. They've actually Javelin Manufacturing is actually custom building this one, and they actually came with the lowest bid out of everybody. With that, I'll be submitting for a grant through the North Region Recycling Association to defer some of that cost.
Do you have any idea what they might be willing to give you?
Maybe 20 to 30%. It's basically, it's up to them, up to their board to figure out how much money they'd be willing to give us.
Good. And then, just, I'm sort of curious, what happens? Do you put, I mean, the way things are, people are supposed to put cans in one place anyway, right?
Right.
And then what does this do?
So we are separating the tin cans, which is the ferrous metal, from the aluminum cans.
I see.
And those go into separate bunkers. And that way we can actually generate more revenue if we did it that way instead of just putting it all mixed up together.
I see, okay. So you're basically, yeah, just splitting the steel from the aluminum out.
Right.
Do we have a motion to approve this purchase order?
I move that we approve this purchase order from Jesse.
Second?
Neil and John, I saw you, I thought maybe you had a question.
No, just moving.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you,
Thanks, Jesse.
Jesse. And with that stuff out of the way, we are privileged here tonight. I think we have Marilee O'Connor and Jason Randall. And I noticed, at least a couple of your commissioners are here too, to discuss the water and sewer project and maybe the way that's going to interact with Northern Pass if and when it happens.
Thank you. Thank you also for this opportunity to meet with you. I always like chances to coordinate and plan with the town on infrastructure projects and other things if we can. Let me introduce, I think you know Jason Randall. He's our superintendent. He's been here before. Mike Terrio is an engineer from Wright Pierce. He's our engineer on this project and many, many others. And you know Chris Woods and Steve Temperino are two commissioners. And Judy DeLeo couldn't make it tonight. She had a family conflict, so here we are. We first met with your administrator and other town officials and DOT back in April of 2015 to talk about what we were then proposing was just a water line on South Main. And we knew that Northern Pass was sort of looming in the background or the foreground as a big unknown. And in some respects it still is. Now, in addition to a water line on South Main, the commission's decided it's feasible to also do the sewer line along South Main, and that would go from Highland Street all the way down and around Warren Street to Russell, that section. But in the meantime, as we've played out our capital planning, we also have projects that would take water and sewer lines from the other end of town, from Foster Street, where the wells are, all the way down to Highland. So our plans actually involve all of Main Street over the next X number of years. And so would this Northern Pass project if it comes to fruition. The phase of South Main, the water lines there, the water lines all around the central downtown area are 80 to 100 or more years old. I looked at a map the other day, and we have maps if you want to see them. Wright Pierce did a master plan for our water system, and the pipes in the ground that are between 1910 and 1940 installation are all in red. And there's this little spider of red lines all up behind the town hall in the village district. So these are a concern for us because they are so old, and we'd rather plan to replace than to deal with leaks. It's a lot more efficient and less disruptive and a lot less expensive in the long run. Down on South Main, we've got hydraulic deficiencies, which impacts fire. And we also have some lead service connections, which we would like to get rid of. Back at that first meeting in April of 2015, we certainly acknowledged part of why I wanted to meet was to acknowledge the disruption that a significant infrastructure project like that is for a Main Street. And I wanted to invite town officials at that point to plan with us, to help coordinate with us, and in fact, to join us in terms of the stormwater issue. And having lived through the project in the center of town, water and sewer and drainage and infrastructure and beautification, I lived through the disruption of the normal functioning of Main Street and felt, the business disruption and understood that enough to know what we'd be facing if we do it on South Main or on all of Main Street. At this point, we don't know the start date, and we don't know the length of the construction of our plan because we're still in design. But we do know the water line alone on South Main would be 2,100 feet of 12-inch ductile pipe that would be replacing this ancient pipe. Once we finish the design phase and we're ready to go out to bid and we know it's going to happen, then we'll know approximate start date and approximate length. And I would anticipate then putting ample notice out to the residents and businesses along South Main. I'm saying South Main, but it's going to end up being the whole length of Main Street. But South Main would likely be first. We'd probably call meetings of all those folks to have an informational meeting and collect their names and email addresses so we could have either bi-weekly meetings, job meetings, and post the schedule either by email or post it on the website so that people could keep up with what we're doing. But I think there's no doubt that a major infrastructure project, whether it's Northern Pass or whether it's the Water and Sewer District, would be anything but a significant disruption to the normal downtown. The upside, I can tell you, for the water and sewer lines at least, is that our own citizens and businesses will benefit by their replacement for the next 180 to 100 years. So, again, we would like very much to eliminate the business risks associated with unexpected leaks. And it makes me nervous to know that they're so old, but they're holding up at this point. So we're concerned certainly about, and we'll work diligently to minimize the impacts of the above-ground disruption, but we have an equal concern about the technical and underground impact of Northern Pass introducing a transmission line through the same area. There are project coordination issues, location issues, scheduling issues, space adequacy issues in the ground, and then access. How does it interface in the ground? How will we be able to get to our water and sewer lines for maintenance or replacement or to fix something if the transmission line lies on top of it? So I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna ask Jason to talk a little bit more about the plans. I had told the board earlier that you've both reviewed the plans and have more of a technical look at things, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have if we can. And then when we finish this, I have one more item if you'll indulge me.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Could you tell us again, is it water from Highland to Russell?
It's water and sewer from Highland to Russell.
Okay.
We had originally, Wright Pierce did a water master plan, and I remember I came and presented that to the board. We had to do that for part of our grant, and I was happy to come and do it. And as we went through our planning, and then Jason came on board, we looked at it and said, well, if we're causing this much disruption on Main Street to replace an 80-year-old water line, what's the sewer line look like? So it quickly made sense to the board at that point to, if we're in the ground replacing water lines and the corresponding sewer line is just as old, let's do it all at once. So that's why we did the smoke testing this summer, and we're gathering data, and maybe Mike can talk a little bit more about the engineering there, but it's water and sewer lines all the way down South Main, And then the northern project would be Foster Street to Highland, and part of it is via Week Street. Part of it's right down Route 3. And then that's the water portion, and then the sewer portion comes down along the railroad tracks and actually somehow gets around the roundabout and heads down Green Street to the plant. So it's exquisitely complicated.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Good.
So, thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Jason.
Good evening. About 2 weeks ago, Sharon had called me up and approached me and asked what the impacts were from Northern Pass with the district's project. And at that time, I had no idea what the actual alignment was. So we dug further into it, and we did find a set of detailed plans that were submitted to DOT District 3. So I don't know if any of you have seen the December 7th version of DOT's project plans. So that was about 2 weeks ago, and that was the first time I had seen the actual alignment. So over the last 2 weeks, both Mike Terrio and I have been going through the plan set and making some comments onto some of the technical aspects of possible conflicts, things that were missing on the plans, so on and so forth, in anticipation that we'll be approached by Northern Pass. So there was quite a few things that we had noted on the plans, and I'll leave this copy with Sharon, and it is marked up. But as you can see, we'll go through a couple of pages here. I don't know if you guys want to go through every single page through the whole town, but there's quite a few yellow markings on here of potential conflicts or disruptions or missing information. So it is there is quite a bit that we still need to iron out with Northern Pass. Hopefully, if and when they approach us, or we may be approaching them to discuss this. But they are in communication with DOT on this, and there has been, I believe, monthly meetings with DOT regarding some of their concerns and specifications.
Can you maybe, I'm sure these things are all different on there, but can you summarize or just sort of explain what the nature of the conflicts that you've identified might be?
Yeah, most of them are with separation issues, separation requirements that the district will have, questions as to what happens if you go over the R line or what happens if you go under R line. There's really no data out there that says this has been done in another location and has worked, as far as I know. And to what degree of a separation is required. There's separation requirements for all utilities. We have separation requirements for water and sewer of 10 feet. There's above ground electrical separation requirements that the co-op has, I believe, of 15 feet. The only thing that, from reading some of the notes in DOT, some of the proposed separation that they show in the plan set is only 2 feet
From your
their
pipes?
line to our pipes.
So you can tell from these plans how close their proposed line is to
Yes.
your line?
They have a typical cross-section in the back. It's on one of the back pages. They have a detailed cross-section for utilities that show whether the pipe is above the line or below the line, and what they would do in a situation if they had to expose a water or sewer line.
Which page is that, Jason?
This is page WBR 3C 503.
Why didn't they just do like 1 through 10? I see.
This is actually only an excerpt out of the
Yeah.
100 and something page. plan, so, yeah, those detail 2, detail 3, and detail 4 across the bottom is what outlines the typical existing utility support details and cross-sections.
So are these, like that first instance, is that a diagram of your pipe crossing the road laterally?
That would be, I believe, intercepting the line, so that would be crossing it at a perpendicular angle. But I would assume that would have equal proposal to go parallel to it as well.
So they're showing something like your lines, then a protective layer of concrete above your lines, and then their buried cable structure, is that what that is?
No, that's actually, native backfill is actually the like the parquet type crosshatch. And then, they did a study, they did a bunch of borings through town, I don't know if everyone remembers. They came through back in the summer, I think did 2 different rounds of borings, and that was to test for the thermal resistivity of the soil, which we found out, looking at DOT minutes, the results came back as poor to terrible. So with that being said, you'll see the darker shading crosshatch is called fluidized thermal backfill. And that's required now to disperse the heat that this line is potentially going to give off. And that material, I don't know if you can speak on behalf of that, Mike, exactly what that is. Is it like a flowable fill, or?
That, I don't actually know a whole lot about it. I think DOT could probably give us a few examples though.
Okay.
That it will require them to box out the trench, and, you know, the impact will be greater, particularly in areas where the native soil is not as thermally advantageous, so they'll have to actually widen out the trench a little bit and add more of that fill in.
So that's one thing.
So Jason, I'm feeling really uneducated here, but where are your lines on these diagrams? I don't think it's.
Sorry, it's a smaller.
Yeah, it's a
smaller set.
It's a very faint line.
Is it the one that's 2 feet below the bottom of?
Yep, it's the in the cross section detail. It's the ones that I have highlighted here. So it's the clear.
Okay, yeah,
The clear area.
gotcha. Wow. So and then I see at the bottom here, it says that the width of these trenches may vary. Did you, from your look at this, determine what that variance is or what the range
I
is?
think that's kind of what Mike just spoke on. Depending what the material is, they're going to have to vary the width. So if they have to put this fluidized thermal backfill in, they might need a wider trench area than if they could with native material. And it also depends on the obstacles. If they have to go under our lines, they might have to go a little wider than if it's a trench above our lines, because they'd have to snake through, and they need more working area potentially. So a lot of the stuff says too that you know, it's standard for contractor to field verify things. You know, some of this I feel will be too late by then if we don't start discussing that with them directly.
And if you did your project first, would you be putting the lines back in the same place that they are now?
We're in the middle of design right now, so we haven't been able to answer that question directly, but they'll be in close alignment to where they are now.
And do you guys have any idea yet about, you know, if that northern pass thing were to go and it were above your lines, how you would be able to access your lines, or what difficulties would be?
That's one of the questions we have. As far as I know, there's been no attempt to educate the town or the district or the citizens in regard to questions just like that, what they're going to require for maintenance, and what the specifications are if we had to dig this up to put material back. So there's a lot of questions still out there as to how we're going to coexist if the time comes to that. And there's a lot left to be answered still within this plan set. I believe DOT is going to provide comments in regard to the differential heaving aspect of it. These lines are proposed to be 2 to 4 feet below the road surface, and in those areas with the heat they're putting off, it's going to cause a warm spot. So all the road around it is going to heave up and cause differential heaving, which is a huge concern of DOT throughout the entire stretch.
So DOT is that's not just your theory, that's been acknowledged by DOT?
Yeah. The disbursement, some of the notes that I've read is the disbursement of heat in 2 feet of this backfill material will take it down to 70 degrees. So that's still quite warm.
Wow.
Can you talk about the voids, the voids that were found?
I don't have any notes on that, Paul.
Was that DOT that found them, or Northern Pass?
That's the meeting minutes that I gave everybody, and which of course, just happened to come to our attention all around the barn here. But there were some concerns, and it was Northern Pass's engineers that were speaking to this backfill and the heaving, and Alan Hanscom, who's the district engineer for DOT, they have jurisdiction on that here. He brought up concerns of heaving and voids and everything else. So it came out of those DOT minutes, which I think everybody, including Paul and Kathy, had copies.
What are void, you mean air places?
Emptiness, or insufficient soils, or old trolley cars, or whatever is down there. And of course, we all know, being that area of town, there's been an awful lot of things over the years that have been subterranean.
Abandoned tunnels?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the whole backfill issue with the synthetic material, and that is hugely problematic in and of itself for many reasons, including increasing the size and depth of the trenches. Not good.
So they have proposed a trenchless technology in certain areas along the alignment. One of them particularly is the area from right in front of the Common Man on Foster Street to just about just past Old North Main Street to go under the river at that point. So you'll see notes in here about that. And that takes it fairly deep. But as far as we know, there's been no river surveys done for river bottom survey. And also the technology that they'll use to direct that boring. Some of it uses magnetic technology. Well, what if they find our ductile iron pipe instead of the correct magnetic tracer that they use? So that there's concerns with the methodology of that type of technology as well. So if there's any other questions you guys have in regard to the technical impact of it, both Mike and I can speak on that.
I have a question about the original concrete plates that the state put in 60 years ago. Aren't they 16 inches thick?
I'm not sure the exact thickness in the road bed there. I don't know if you had seen on some of the plans, Mike.
Generally, they're 8 to 12 inches thick. There are a lot of them still in place, and either the water and sewer project or the Northern Pass are going to need to address that, meaning some of those road panels where excavation happens will need to be removed, and some parts entirely, meaning the full width.
from the proposed photo that they had, it looked like they were just going to cut them.
This will be a comment New Hampshire DOT has going back to the design engineers. And their requirements will be to remove the concrete plates.
Back when we first met on
In April.
April 2015, two representatives from DOT were here, and they did make the comment that it would require a full width restoration.
They
of
told
those
us if we
areas.
touched the slab, we owned the slab.
Yep.
Had to remove the whole thing. But they did tell Northern Pass that they could saw cut it, which was different than what they told us.
Right, so that's something we'll be discussing further with them as well.
And this would involve the entire width of the roadway then, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Correct.
And so would we have the road shut down for as long as it took them to remove all of these things if they did this?
There's different methods for water and sewer, at least in the South Main Street area. Sewer is on the west side of the road, where water is on the east side of the road. So our project, we would be able to go through and potentially shut down one lane, pull that side out, put our line in, backfill, and then jump over the other side. Where Northern Pass is actually going right down the center line of the road in that location. So for them, it would be entire road closure.
But you have to go first, really, if,
We would prefer to go first in this situation.
I mean, if this thing went in and it was, I don't know how wide and deep these things are, but they're pretty wide and deep, right? And they're encased, they're in concrete boxes that go down the road, is that kind of what they are?
No, there's a concrete cap over the
Okay.
top of these, as you'll see in that cross-section area. But that's some of the questions we have, is if they go over top and we have an issue with our line underneath, say there's a leak or a break, will it wash out the entire section of transmission line as well?
And I could imagine that the heat might affect the variation in the, you know, the freezing and so on. It could
That's
break
exactly right.
Paul, yeah.
Just off the cuff, are they forcing us into a situation that underground is so impossible that they're gonna say that they have to go above ground? I'm just,
They'd have to, redo their whole submission.
I realize that, but
So that's, can't happen with this one that's in front of the SEC right now. So,
Yeah, it sounds like that would be a whole new application. I mean, I think I've read that they can make, relatively minor modifications, but if they were gonna say, okay, we're going down the interstate, that would involve a whole new application probably. Sharon?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if it's a question or a point I'm trying to make, but, we had proposed, Paul, at the outset to utilize Railroad Square and everything else, which I don't think probably has any more subterranean horrors than Main Street does, and that's totally off the table as far as I know. But never any notification of that from Northern Pass, just kind of, evaporated. Because that was supposed to, allow us to not have to at least deal with yet another disruption.
Yeah, well, that whole thing was the subject of that one meeting we had with them, and my recollection of it is they sort of left it up to us to propose something if we wanted to, and I believe that between the property lines and the easements that would be required and the greater complexity of going around back, the turns and so on, I don't think they were really interested, and I don't think that all those landowners were necessarily going to give them the easement they needed. So it seemed like it was sort of an impossible task, and we didn't pursue it. And they weren't really interested in pursuing it because I think this is the easier way for them. That's just my own opinion, really, but.
and of course, the legislature passed the energy corridors going down
Right.
93 and
Right, so-
89, so,
Which has been totally ignored, but, right, yeah.
and that we don't have to worry about the road buckling inside the highway versus under our road. So,
Yeah, I could see that installation causing problems for the water and sewer infrastructure for years and years, and they won't care. They'll be gone, right?
Yeah.
I mean, do you feel that the installation of this thing, given the heat dissipation issues and all of that, is likely to, or, I don't know if we could say it's like, but is it, yeah, I guess, is it likely to cause problems with the water and sewer infrastructure?
In terms of an interference,
No, I was thinking more about in terms of this whole, the idea to me that that we're gonna have frost heaves on, that the ground is gonna heave on one side but not on the other, or something, I don't know, that the heat dissipation is gonna disrupt the water and sewer lines after this is all installed, is that?
it'll certainly be a concern for any services. Water services, sewer services are generally a lot shallower than the mains. And they're not showing a lot of their services, the district's services on the drawings. So I anticipate when they get into construction, they're gonna hit a bunch of them. So it's important for them now to do the legwork, show where they are so that we can better handle that concern, meaning, you know, all of our services are gonna be under, or do we need to worry about our services being over their new cable conduits where the heaving would be a concern?
So this would be a situation, for example, where I'm on the opposite side of the street from the main, and my service has to go either under theirs or over theirs. And probably right now, most of those you're saying are relatively shallow. And maybe they would need to be deeper, so they would be more, they'd have to be more than 5 feet or something.
I think it's important to start the dialect with them so that they can put forth the effort so we're all on the same page.
They're proposing 8-inch Schedule 40 to carry their high voltage
Yeah,
lines.
two of them. I thought that seems kind of small.
I'm kind of curious about that.
We had asked them what the material would be for the lines themselves, and it is a type of copper transmission line. It's not a hydraulically driven line, which they do have some. So I would assume it would be pretty full in those 8-inch lines, pretty good size.
And they're really hot.
Right. So that's one concern. The district does have experience with hot lines. We have some steam lines at the university that in the past have caused water quality issues in some of the university buildings that were in close proximity to the steam lines. And they also, there's the potential there, heat is a catalyst, potential for excessive corrosion in those lines.
Sounds like a lot of question marks. Yes, Mel?
There are a lot of question marks. Because Mark Fischler's here, I'm assuming representing PUC, there was a comment that Mike made to us today. Jason, Mike, and I spoke on the telephone to prepare for this meeting earlier, and if Northern Pass goes through, part of the detour would be
They're proposing to shut down Main Street and send traffic through
up
the
through
campus.
Merrill Street and Langdon.
Yep.
So just another, who knew? Just another piece of concern.
Is that apparent from this?
There is traffic details in the full plan set. I don't know if they received the entire document, but if you go on the SEC website, they have the entire document. I think it's 65 megabytes. Takes an hour to download on your computer, but towards the rear they do have traffic detour patterns proposed.
They have time estimates on these?
I don't believe so.
No.
Have you heard anything about the time this is likely to take? I know this isn't your thing to know, but I'm just curious if you'd heard anything about that.
I would believe, to put a ballpark estimate, I would believe it would be on the at least 3-month range. I don't know if that sounds reasonable, Mike, for a certain section.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna phase the drilling as well, so, I mean, it's probably at least half a construction season. Having spoke with DOT today, it sounds like if, they have a lot of lawsuits tied up in the work currently, and if, once those clear, the earliest they're anticipating would probably be 2019, 2020, or 2021 in terms of when the work would actually start.
And I know this probably isn't for you to know necessarily either, but do we have any idea how long this whole thing is supposed to take to build?
3 construction seasons.
And would they start everywhere or start in the north? Do you know if they start in the north or the?
I don't think that's been.
I talked to Paul Ramsey, who's the Vice President of Operations, on the telephone today at some length, and he said that he would be interested in knowing, in all the towns, is there a better or worse time, given that we have students, given that we have tourists. Some of the towns just have tourists, they don't have students, so he at least sounded like if they're coming and we need to coordinate, that they would work with us on the logistics and scheduling and work with us to, I don't think he used the word accommodate, but they've got to accommodate our project, our lines.
Mel, if I can interject and add on to that, this is working this from another angle. Plymouth as an intervener town essentially is being deposed, not literally, but being deposed by Northern Pass and asking for these specific impact questions and answers and everything, which we have given them. And that's a case in point, we've already done this. There is so much disconnect, and I think some of it is on purpose. That's the consensus through all the interveners. There's this, you get this from this person, the information is not forthcoming, you have to dig for it, you have to interpret it yourself, you have to get with your intervener groups and see what they've dug up. I mean, it's just, procedurally, it's a nightmare. I mean, I have attested to, some of those questions, queried PSU as to their events and what the disruptions would be in our own issues and cultural events. And Mr. Ramsey, who is a VP at Eversource, he's privy to this information already. So, I don't know. It's interesting.
Well, I think
Yes.
this is my opinion. This doesn't reflect the commission, but it might. If Northern Pass is coming, and I understand that you folks are interveners in the case, if they're coming, it seems to me that our best course of action going forward is to minimize the consequences for our businesses and citizens and students and our events, and if that means that we have to coordinate with them, that's what we should do. But I know, I think, we have our own message to you tonight, and I know that you have your own message to carry back to the SEC, and I understand that. We're more concerned about the technical, how's this going to fit aspects. Our board has not taken a formal position against Northern Pass or anything. We don't want to just wait and have it done to us, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
My 2 cents.
No, I understand. I think we've all been struggling with this to some extent because the clear sort of mandate from the community has been, we don't want them coming through here, and don't deal with them, don't negotiate with them, or and so, aside from being interveners along with a lot of the other towns that are involved, we have not reached out with them in an effort to determine, when is this going to happen, how's it going to happen, what's the best way to do it. I don't think they really care or are going to listen to much of anybody. They're going to fight their battle with the SEC, they're gonna try to get their approval, and then they're gonna come barreling through as they darn well please, I think. So, I appreciate your concern. I understand that, it would be better, if it's going to happen, to have it done in as organized and least disruptive manner as possible, but we haven't really been able to come up with a strategy to accommodate the citizens of the town and those concerned simultaneously, I guess. And so what we've chosen to do is sign on with an attorney who represents several other towns, act as interveners, and participate in the process, and kind of see where it leads us. I do have this feeling that we're probably a few years off, because, I mean, the motions and the objections and the stuff just keep, rushing in there every day, and it's going to take them a while to iron this out one way or the other.
Could I just make one more point, please? That just was a natural conclusion. Again, in this intervener process, the lawyers for Northern Pass presumed that the town of Plymouth itself as a municipal entity owned water and sewer and everything else. I had to bring it to their attention that, it was a separate, distinct utility, in addition to the fact, that it was coming down Main Street, which was Route 3, so we had no real jurisdiction over the road itself. So we've been doing a lot of that back and forth on that recently. So perhaps, once the SEC digests this, perhaps then they being Northern Pass, like I said the other day, will be contacting you guys directly, because, they're trying to, it's been brought to their attention, the ownership, literal and figurative, of the different portions of this through Main Street. So maybe that will at least partially affect some communication. I don't know. They don't like to hear what anyone has to say, and that is the truth. It just bounces back, but at least you'll be under scrutiny now too, so good luck.
But whatever happens, the district is preparing itself in the case that it does happen. So we'll be there with the questions, the right questions at the right time, and possibly be able to coordinate to produce the least amount of business and traffic disruptions for our project and their project when the time comes.
Well, if you forge ahead with yours and you're probably going to get to it first, because you're almost ready to go, right? I mean, you've got the money and the engineering's coming together and so on. But it sounds like maybe you're going to have to engineer it in such a way that this other thing will fit if it comes along. You're almost going to have to. I mean,
that would be, at that point, it would be up to them to fit to what we already have in the ground. So that's kind of the point where we'd be farther ahead than what they are, and it would be difficult to make changes to ours. And that's kind of what the next step is if we do forge ahead, is to who has the right to be in that spot in the ground. Do we have the right to be there? Do they have the right to move us if need be? What the responsibilities are when it comes to that. I don't know if you can talk on that at all, Mike.
I mean, when we get into detailed design, we'll need to be, keep in mind the alignment that's been presented to us. There'll need to be some tweaks in our design and need to be tweaks in their design to make this work. There's drainage on both sides of the road. There's water and sewer, and some places there's other, miscellaneous things buried in the ground. But it'll need to be a collective effort, and not only just between the district and the Northern Pass, but heavily involving DOT. It's ultimately their jurisdiction.
Yeah. Very interesting. Did either of the commissioners want to add anything?
Perhaps only that, I
Chris?
think it's already been said, but and you're probably aware of this, but the cost that we could incur down the road if they lay their utilities over top of ours. We don't, that's a huge unknown, and it, certainly as commissioner, that's the top concern of mine. That
Yeah.
If we had to do any kind of work in the future, working around their utility, their concrete cap, their flowable fill, is going to add significantly to costs. And ultimately, that's the residents of Plymouth who are going to have to foot that bill.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is kind of what you're saying, and I don't know if it even makes, I don't know anything about this, but this question of whether the presence of that thing could actually damage your pipes and stuff. I was just wondering if that's...
Jason mentioned that it could be the heat could be a catalyst for corrosion in a
Right, could
water line.
could produce premature wear of our pipes, our service lines that Mike had mentioned. That's something that is a shared cost. We own the service line to the curb stop, but beyond that, it's the residents and with the users, and with sewer from the main to the customer's building is what they own. So a lot of that, anything that would affect those lines would be borne on the customer. So that is a huge cost associated with that, potentially even having to move them. If they had to move them right off the bat when they're coming through, significant cost.
Well, they would have to pay for that, wouldn't they, if they were gonna move them? Yeah, who knows? Right?
Mike, just as a, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, just as a point of protocol, because these are two parallel processes, I mean, the Water and Sewer District is not an intervener per se, but, they're a public utility and this and that. These concerns that you folks have should be going to the site evaluation committee. I don't know exactly how. I mean, perhaps our intervener attorney could give some guidance on this. But I mean, these are real considerations of very high impact. And like I said earlier, I think that, Northern Pass just presumed and assumed that the town of Plymouth owned all this infrastructure. And I did set them to rights a couple of weeks ago when Jason and I had our little discussion, and they really need to know this, because this is just mind-boggling impact. I mean, to the point of just being ridiculous to move forward on their part and really mess up your new infrastructure and have an ongoing cost to the citizens of Plymouth. It's just
Well, and
unacceptable.
the other thing is that the underground portion of this runs from, Bethlehem or so down to
Yep.
Bridgewater.
Yep.
And in that span, we have by far the greatest installed infrastructure and are the biggest sort of roadblock for them, I would think, the most difficult
I know
area to
that the
go
town of
through.
Ashland, their water and sewer district, has filed and received intervener status just for this reason.
But they're overhead down there.
Right, but I mean, just in
Yeah.
terms of having an impact, due to the constructions.
Well, certainly the water and sewer issues have been raised in our responses to their, I think.
I did, I directed, specifically water and sanitary sewer to their attention through Plymouth Village, and then said, we have ownership of stormwater, and DOT owns the road. It's like,
And although you've recently had to tell them that water and sewer is a separate entity,
Correct.
it's not
So-
like they've been coming to us for information about water and sewer.
they're making giant assumptions about things that personally I think they should be paying a little better attention to. So as I said earlier, I think they may be contacting you in a matter of a few weeks or something, once they digest this latest testimony from the town.
No?
It's complicated.
Yeah. All right, well, we are somewhat more educated. We'll have to take a look at these things, and,
Like I said, I'll leave this with Sharon.
I can make bigger sets for everybody. These are ridiculously small.
well, they're legible.
I can
Yeah.
email you it too, Sharon.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, anyone have any more questions for this evening?
Paul?
Do they interfere with you all the way out to Campton?
Yes.
All the way out to,
Campton.
oh,
Yeah, that's something that Mel had touched on is, I think we're kind of focused on the South Main Street area, but
Yeah.
yes, indeed, they
that's what.
they go all the way up to the Campton Town line, along with our utilities as well.
And the frost heaves would go all the way to the Campton line.
Yes.
I have a question for
Neil?
Mel.
for who?
Mel.
Yep.
Could you consider accommodating Sharon's concerns
Of
that
course.
she just voiced?
Yeah, when I spoke with the fellow, Paul Ramsey, who's the vice president of Eversource today, I was inviting us to meet with them at DOT, at Mike's suggestion earlier today, and I think it's too late for us to apply to be interveners.
Yeah, it is,
But we can certainly meet with them, and I laid out some of our concerns today, general, broad, non-technical concerns for him. But, we were inviting each other to sit down and meet, so I think we'll try to work on that through Mike's contacts at DOT as soon as we can. So, yes. Yeah,
Thank you.
that's our interest, is to have our concerns heard and honored if they're coming through. And he doesn't even know. Their technology is evolving too, and I don't know anything, but I raised the issue about the heat emanating from these transmission lines, and he said, they're going to raise heat. They're using a new technology. So I don't know if that's information you folks didn't have yet. I don't know anything, I just mentioned it. And I'm sure their project is evolving just as ours do.
What's happening, it's evolving as it's.
Right.
The website with thousands of documents to download and pick out the ones.
Right, and it's by station, not by town, that was, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, we'll be happy to, yes, we want to talk with them. Sure.
Just another loose end, but we made reference to PSU and Mark, but have you been brought into the discussion as well, or maybe being an alternative route for traffic control, or?
We have not been brought into the discussion as far as I'm aware. But we should be at some point. They need to work together as one unit to handle this together.
Sharon, do you have?
That's exactly right. I mean, we are, all interwoven and stuff, and as you just mentioned speaking with Mr. Ramsey, who's a very nice man, I'm not putting him down at all, but our concerns we can't address because it's your.
Yeah, there are concerns, right.
I mean, we're the overarching intervener, but this portion of our very serious concerns are over here, and you don't have intervener status. So in terms, nor does the university, but collaboratively,
we don't have intervener status.
We're all part of the town of Plymouth.
To the SEC, but we can have information exchange directly with Eversource.
Right, but it's very important that in my opinion, that the SEC, as they go forward in trying to, approve or not approve this permit, these are very real concerns, and it should be, widespread. I've tried to convey that to the SEC in the testimony, but then they come back and say, well, specifics and/or something that's not my jurisdiction.
Well, I can find out if there's a way to provide information without being an intervener.
Well, that's yeah.
We'll reach out to our contacts. We have contacts who initially approached us through PAR Electric, as well as Burns and McDonnell, which is the design engineer. So we'll reach out to those contacts and try to coordinate with them.
But I think Sharon's suggesting the SEC needs to know because.
Well, I mean, this is general, real, impactful information that is part of the town of Plymouth, and we're an intervener, so, it's a little awkward, but they need to know before they do a ruling on this, because the ruling is forever and ever, amen. And if there are some critical pieces that would affect you and the ratepayers of Plymouth and, PSU and everything, that information's got to get there.
I hear you.
Bill?
So, yeah, we can work with Eversource to explain the risks and the problems that they have to deal with, but it's SEC that's going to give a thumbs up or thumbs down to the project, so they need to have this evidence in order for them to make that decision. versus Eversource, who said, oh, yeah, we can handle that. No.
I know, I'm sorry to keep interrupting, but this is evolving as it goes. The counsel for the public out of the AG's office, Peter Roth,
Yeah, Roth.
They're kind of not the catch-all agency, but because they are overarching to be the public's eyes and ears and stuff, that's always a possibility too, to send that
Yep.
information that way.
Jason's got a relationship with him, so.
Yeah.
I spoke to Attorney
good.
Peter Roth. At the
He
on the
says
phone.
Roth, because we
Roth.
always say
Oh,
Roth,
Roth?
so
Okay.
yeah, or
Roth.
whatever, but yeah.
Spoke to Attorney Roth and explained our concerns to
That's
him.
wonderful.
Some of that was beyond his education, so he put me in touch with his engineer,
Right.
with Dewberry
Oh, right,
Engineering.
yeah.
I believe his name was David Taylor.
Yeah.
I spoke
And
to
his
him.
testimony, did you get his testimony? Because I have that.
I did not get his testimony, but I did speak to his engineer at length in regard to this, similar to what we talked about tonight. And as far as I know, they're proceeding.
Okay, so that
with
information
knowledge
is
now.
going through the conduit to the
Yes.
SEC. That's great.
Can I, on that point, the counsel for the public recently filed some extensive testimony by.
That's what Jason's referring to.
Oh, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, those engineering reports, yes.
Yeah. And I think, I haven't read all that, but I think they addressed Plymouth and the infrastructure issue.
Very much so.
In fact, they asked you at the last minute for some engineering information, I think, or they asked us.
Yes, yep.
And then I think Paul, so he's aware of it, and I think he's raised it. So maybe that's getting to the SEC anyway, but that's a good point, that, if you just talk to Eversource, I don't mean to offend them, but they will probably just bury it, so to speak. They will not say to the SEC, oh my God, we've got all these problems in Plymouth. They will probably just try to bull through it. But I think there is a fair amount of that already contained within that testimony that was recently filed. That would be a good thing for all of us to look at, though. What exactly did they say, and how extensively did they address it?
So we'll trade
Yep.
paper.
Okay. All right? Everybody happy?
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in and for all the effort you put into it. We appreciate it.
So I have one more item.
Yes.
If you'll indulge me.
I thought you said you had
I
one.
did, and this is sort of under the, well, I have you here, which I know you've heard a couple times before. Some of you may know that would you mind being my distributor? There's one for each of you there, and I think there's five pieces. Oh, thanks. The town highway garage sits on property owned by the district under a 99-year lease that started in 1974. So I'm not really going to talk about that part. That's fine. And you'll see as you get your paper, there's the 1974 lease. There's a lease that was first commenced in 1996 for another section of property, and then there's some drawings that illustrate the same. So a couple of months ago, I was trying to go through older electronic files in the district to see what I should keep and what I should put in an archive. And I came across a lease that, it's a more modern lease than the 1974. It was first in 1996 for an additional 60 feet of land, which is where the salt and sand shed sits. So we don't have it marked on the ground, but it's outside the district fence, and it's before the actual highway shed. The last time this lease was signed was 2008, which means it expired. This was a 3-year lease, not a 100-year lease.
Okay.
So it expired in 2011, and I don't know why it wasn't renewed at that point. But as I read through it, I anticipated that I would be coming to the commissioners and coming to the board saying, hey, we should renew this lease because it's now expired. I came across the section, I think it's 6C, that had anticipated by the parties then that the district might need that space back for operations connected to the wastewater treatment plant. So just to be belt and suspenders, I went to Jason and said, I've discovered this lease on this property. We are in the middle of designing a septage receiving unit for trucks to come in. Oops, excuse me. For trucks to come in, dispose of their loads. And that's last year's bond issue. It's $1.3 million. It's a big project. We get almost 4 million gallons of septage in a year from a variety of vendors. And it's a revenue driver of about $300,000 a year for the district. So it's a significant part of our business, if you will. When I asked Jason if the space was needed, I was actually surprised that the answer was yes, that he and Mike had been struggling in design to figure out how the trucks could come in on a weight scale, dump their loads without having to go in a circuitous route around the plant to exit. So I went to the commissioners with this, and although the lease has been expired, it's not in effect for 6 years, we want to do this in the nicest way possible and let you know that we would like you to vacate that 60-foot section by June of this year. So we're trying to come tonight. We were coming here anyway, and I thought rather than to write you this formally, and I will do that anyway, but to try to come and tell you in person that's the reason that we would like to have that strip of land back. And to also give you time, I know you're probably at the end of your budget prep and town meeting prep, but if you have to do something, gives you a little bit of time to plan for town meeting. As you know, that property down there is bound on one side by the river, on the other side by the railroad tracks, and I think Jason told me that they had tried 5 different ways to make it work, and having this extra strip of 60 feet makes the truck entrance work, and they were struggling to find a way for it to work otherwise. So I don't like coming here to drop that news because I know it's probably not welcome. I understand that it's not, but at least the folks that drafted that 1996 agreement could foresee that perhaps at some point the district would need that property back, and it does. Yes.
How much room do we have between our building and the boundary line after you take this?
I don't know. Does any-
Would be pretty much as you can see on the overlay, right at the north side of the sand. The north side of the sand, existing sand shed is where the boundary line would be.
None of that matters. The sand shed has to come down, right?
Correct. But
It doesn't matter to you.
What Neil asked was there enough room between the building and that? There is a roadway in there to go around the building currently, and that will still be in existence.
The bigger problem is the sand shed. We'll talk to Joe.
Is that the sand shed right there?
It's the white,
Yeah, okay.
on the map, it's
Yep.
the white building there.
Well, you're just full of good news tonight, Mel.
Well, I'm taking my lumps, I'm sorry, but I did not want to, I wanted to come and try to explain why we need to do this and not have it be in any way sort of a adversarial termination of the tenancy, but that, so you could understand our need, so what the need is. And I don't know why the lease wasn't renewed. I hadn't heard there was any request to renew it back then. I was surprised to find what I found.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure it's buried somewhere. Good.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for coming in, appreciate it. I guess that's it for that. So what else have we got here? Committee reports? Anybody attend anything they'd like to?
Their meetings tonight.
Just this morning.
So,
Oh, yeah.
We had that meeting this morning with the university.
Yeah, do you wanna summarize what happened there?
We had a meeting,
Mark Fischler's here, he could probably,
He wasn't at that meeting, though, I don't believe. The
no,
legislative, report by
today?
PSU. What's that?
I was in a different meeting today. But some of you were there, I heard.
well, Mike and Bill and I were at the University Welcome Center with the president of the university and his staff, and they had invited state senators and state legislators, and there were governor's counselors and at least one county commissioner. It was very well attended.
Two commissioners.
Two commissioners. It was very well attended, and we had a great presentation by the faculty and a couple of students, and Thadgal Pranson, and we learned more about how the university is adapting its academic programs to provide broader application of on-hand learning and in the community.
that's a good summary, yeah.
Yeah.
It was actually, it sounds like the vision is becoming more crystallized than it was a year ago at a similar event.
Okay,
Yeah, it was very good. And your students were very impressive, both of them. I thought they did a very nice job.
good, thank you.
Yeah, it was
Thanks
very,
for being there, guys.
well, I knew that you had to reschedule it because I missed the last one.
That's right. It was all for you, Michael.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought it was for me.
Everything,
And you, Bill.
All right, guys.
no, it's very well done.
Thank you for being there.
Did you want to address the,
Which one?
well,
Actually, I got a-
anything else?
I got a couple of committee reports, actually.
All right.
I'm gonna hit it
You're
right
up.
now. All right, now that the audience is pretty much,
You're on TV.
that's true, to my audience. But,
Thousands of people are watching.
There was a planning board meeting last Thursday, and we had a proposal to do 3 zoning ordinance changes. We're doing definition refinements. There are several definitions that were being modified. We're also addressing a couple of other ones. Also, there's a statute to have municipalities deal with accessory dwelling units, ADUs, and we came up with regulations regarding that, and also signage ordinances are compliant with law now, or will be, if the town votes in favor of it. So we had a first public hearing last Thursday at the planning board, and there were some issues that were kind of raised, or some punctuation things in the actual writing of the ordinances, or the changes, and they're going to be firmed up, and then we're going to have another public hearing prior to February 2nd. I think that's the drop dead date for public hearings, and that was done at the planning board. Also had an Energy Commission meeting on the 21st, and I think this is the first time I've been able to report on that.
Mhm.
And the focus is on the PV array. We're still targeting the recycling center. And the chair, Katie Bush, was going to seek a fresh power purchase agreement from, I guess Revision was the group that responded initially. And she'll report on that on the 18th. We're going to have another meeting on the 18th. Also, we've been working with a co-op to look at some alternative wattage bulbs for street lamps. Right now, we have 65 watt bulbs throughout the town, and we were informed that there was 2 other bulbs that they could roll out for replacement, and those have been installed in 3 locations in the town, and we're going to be taking a look at that just to see, the light that's given off and that kind of stuff. And
So they've already installed 3 sample bulbs of the lower wattage?
Yep, so, we've been working with Bill Johnstone and, seeking, we could have provided input on placement, but apparently it was easier for him to go ahead and put them in several areas. So there's an entrance just west of NHEC headquarters campus. That's one of the bulbs, the LED streetlights, and these are 25 and 32 watt bulbs. Also, Smith Bridge Road on the sharp corner, as you turn onto Smith Bridge Road from Route 25, there's a lamp that's there. That might be by the, the alternative treatment center, I guess, on the backside. And just west of the Smith Bridge, Smith Cover Bridge, there's a lamp there as well, and it's lighting the parking lot that's by Smith Bridge. And Fairgrounds Road, there's a pull-off 2,160 feet, about 0.41 miles east of Loon Lake Road in Plymouth.
Can I ask you, what do we have to do to get a light at the intersection of Loon Lake Road?
Is it a fixture that's already there that needs replacement?
That intersection is very difficult to see, and a lot of people have trouble finding the intersection at night.
Of Loon Lake Road, or Loon Lake and
Loon
Chase
Lake,
or just?
Loon Lake and Fairground.
Yeah, okay.
Is there
I
a
think
pole over
Chason Road actually has, Loon Lake and Chason Road actually has a street light. But there is no illumination at the intersection of Loon Lake and Fairground Road, and that is a very difficult intersection to see. It's hard to find the turn at night.
Has there never been one there?
I guess there's no light. I don't know if there's never been a light
Is there a
there.
pole?
Yeah, there's a pole right there. I'm requesting a light.
I'll bring it up with the Energy Commission, because then they'll have to
Okay.
approach,
Okay, I will.
New Hampshire Electric Cooperative, and,
Yeah.
it's, okay. I'll bring it up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that it?
That's it for me.
Anything else? Anybody else? Unfinished business, any public comment? There is no public comment.
Yeah, non-public.
We need a non-public session. All right, so we'll take a motion to go into non-public.
So move.
Second.
Second by Neil. We are in non-public.
All those in favor?
Oh, all those in favor? Yeah.
Aye.
Sorry, you didn't get to weigh in. Well, I was good with it, and those two were, so those 3 of us.